Hey guys, welcome back to Welding with Mr. Sapanik. Today's episode is going to be welding a shielded metal arc welding V-groove in the flat position. Now in our last segment, we talked about the setup and tacking everything together and prepping it for what we're about to do today. Now this is in accordance with the AWS D1.1 structural welding code, which specifically states that you may use power tools. That would include a grinder and or a wire wheel to clean or grind your materials. The width is a minimum of 3 inches on each piece, which makes an overall for 6 inches. We have a 1/4 of an inch gap in the middle. We have a 1/4 of an inch backing strip with our bevels that are on about a 60-degree overall bevel, about a 30-degree for each side, a 30-degree bevel for each side. So now let's take a look at our plate here. Now for our first pass, we're going to fire up on what's called our runoff tabs. So this is a runoff tab, and then this is a runoff tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire up here. We're going to go nice and wide until we come into our joint here. Now when we get inside this joint, I personally like to manipulate that rod just a little bit side to side, but you don't have to, as long as you're going slow enough to tie piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3 all together in one. Okay, so now one of the struggles that you might deal with is making it from point A to point B with one rod. Now if you need to stop, I recommend putting maybe a line with a piece of soapstone right here in the center. So if you need to stop when you are welding, it's always recommended to stop here within this 2-inch area, because if you stop right here or right here, that is actually where your material is going to be cut. So if you stop right here, there's a very good chance that your restart, you're going to have a bunch of slag stuck here, and then when you do your bend test, it's going to fail because of your restart. So if you have to restart, stop in the center, get a new rod, and then restart. Usually the only time that this problem is going to occur is when you are running on that initial root pass, because you're going slower to make sure that you're tying everything in. Now the next passes, you should be able to go from point A to point B without any stopping whatsoever. So we're going to stop right at the halfway mark here with our rod, and then we're going to switch our rod, chip a little bit here, and then we're going to continue our weld out. Okay, so let's set this back. We're going to move this down to where you can see it. Okay. Now we're going to get started here. Okay, now we're going to save this rod for later, because that's still a good rod. Now notice how I stopped it right about the halfway point. Okay, so we're going to chip just our edge there, clean this up. Now we'll just fire right back up right where we left off, continue our weld. Okay, let's chip this up. Okay, so here's our first pass. Now notice how I stopped at the end and I started at the end. Okay, those runoff tabs are there for a reason. They are not part of your certification or your grade. Okay, you just have to make sure that you have a good tie-in on each of your toes. Okay, looking down the other side here, everything's pretty good. So now, next set of passes, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start on our runoff tabs, and we're going to take away at least half of this previous weld, tying into this other side. Okay, so now we can get this done with one weld, okay, one rod, and just make sure that you are angling, you know, just to this side slightly, and making sure that you're tying into this piece and the weld. Okay, so let's go ahead and set that up. Ready? Let it cool down for a second. All right, so now we're ready for our second pass. When you run that first pass, you have to make sure that you're leaving enough space here for a rod to go in between. If you have this over this way too far, you're gonna have a very small gap there. So now we're gonna go into pass number 3, setting up our rod here, moving in close. We're gonna stay onto this left-hand side here. have our 2-pass over this right now. So now we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go back over it again. We're just going to continue to do a 2 or possibly a 3-pass until you get all the way to the surface. Okay, so here's the first of another 2. So now I'm going to fill in this left side. And that'll take me almost even, and I'll probably have another set of 2 passes that's going to go over top of this before my 3-pass cap. Notice how every pass, I'm cleaning out all that slag and I'm wire brushing. Okay, so now we're ready for 2 more sets of welds before our cap here. Okay, so we have our first pass on the right side. Now I'm going to tie it in on the left side. And then we're going to run our 3-pass cap over that. So you guys will see it here in just a second. All right, so when you're making your welds, you want to get to where your welds are sitting flush with the material itself, the base material. Because now, AWS code, you have an 1/8 of an inch max above the surface, and then also an 1/8 of an inch max onto each of these plates that you're allowed to go. So we're gonna start right on the edge, right where this plate is. That's where we're gonna put our electrode. So our rod's gonna go right here. Make a weld down, one in the center, and then one tying it in on the other side. So it'll be a 3-pass cover, is what we call it. Okay, so there's 1 of 3. Or maybe 2. We might be able to get this done in 2. We'll see. And it's looking like 3 here. we got one final pass here. Alright, so here's our finished weld. Okay, this is what you call a 3-pass cover on the D1.1 1G certification. Next step will be to show you how to lay it out and cut the actual pieces of material.